Hey,
I'm here.
we have a topic today.
I heard, but I also heard you ask everybody to give an intention.
Yeah, I did.
Set an
Yeah, yeah,
intention.
yeah. I'm curious to know what the intention of everybody is today.
This person
Self
said
work.
feeling unsettled intention.
Woke up with fear. Yeah, it's today is a fear, and urine is bladder is all fear. I was feeling it, man. I was reading the comments, and I was feeling everybody's fear, and I'm like, somebody in there, show me a study, and I'm like, man, there's lots of studies. I have a friend who's one of the world's top vascular surgeons, Dr. Joe Shavasana, and in Los Angeles, and he became natural. He came to Human Garage because his wife was impacted for 28 days, where her colon was impacted, and their only answer was to take out the colon. And he says, like all these years of medicine, that can't be the only answer. There has to be another way to look at this. And so what they did is he got in a plane, flew to India, taught one of the world's top Ayurvedic doctors, and the doctor looked at her and says, "Just drink your urine." And within 24 hours, it had passed. So she went from "We're going to have to take out your colon, or you're going to die," to 24 hours later, it was removed. And Dr. Joe was the one who pushed me over the edge, actually, and made me a believer because, like, he's one of the most respected vascular surgeons in the world. And this is where the science and then the experience had crossed. His experience was he saved his wife's life doing it.
Well, also, people need to realize that the East have been doing this for literally thousands of years. Do you realize how old our country is? Our
Hundred.
country's uh, Yeah, hundreds of years. We're like little children. I'll actually say that America, the Americas are like teenagers, right? So we need science to validate everything, but the East has already been doing their own version of science for thousands of years. And yes, they were experimenting. Yes, they were taking notes. It's written on tablets, it's written on scrolls. It's everywhere in the East. We just haven't translated it all for us to understand, and they don't care too much to.
You guys hear me? Okay, sorry, you cut out. Yeah, I'm not sure. Could you guys still hear me, or is it just raw freezing? Well said,
Uh,
Bill. So did I?
um, you cut out on my end, but I don't know if that means it's my internet.
Yeah,
But
no. Well, we'll go again. I've been having some funny stuff happen here. I might have to move to another spot.
okay.
They're working on our internet today. So, yeah, this is an interesting topic because urine comes from the bladder, which represents fear. Today is a spiritual day. It's a Pisces day in Sagittarius, so it's extreme. And when I went in the comments, I could just feel everybody's fear, and I'm like, "What's the fear about? Either you don't have to, it's like anything else. You don't. People don't. They disagree with things that we say all the time, but then you get all the people coming in. No, it saved my life. No, I'm a doctor. No, this helped, and it's just going nuts right now. But it's funny how people react, right? Stacy, I just drank mine.
Yeah, I mean and it tastes good. It feels good.
It does.
Like you could use your own science and experiment. And you've got other people's stories that could give you the confidence to at least try, even a few drops.
So you went now you went 3-day fast, right? And you were fasted and you did urine, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't looping, so I still was drinking
Right.
water. Um, but I've met many people that loop and they don't drink water. They only drink urine and then urine and then urine and urine.
Yeah.
And yeah, positive things they all have to say about it. And these people that I know, like the ones that are really into it, like I've been You know, you were talking to Troy Casey. He might have mentioned this guy, Dr. Shavambu is what he calls him, but his name's Eric. But Eric's a friend of mine, and I've hung out with him and his friends, and they're all same thing with Troy. They're all like bright, like they're
Yeah,
glowing.
bright
They're
eyes. Yeah,
yeah, their auras are strong. Their skin is clear,
yeah.
and then they drink their own pee. It's like,
You know, it's just weird because here's something that we noticed just from it was one of those things where it's like where's the world going with this? And here we have a post on a Muay Thai fighter that we just did last week that's got 1 million views almost, right? And it's got 2,000 shares, right? This post has been up this morning. It's only been up for a couple hours, and it's got almost 15,000 shares. So you know that people want to talk about it, but there's a social conditioning that says I'm afraid to. And what I found is that when we started talking about this, maybe 6 months ago, what I found was people in the comments would say, "Oh, I've been doing this for years." I was sorry, not in the comments, in the DMs, but they wouldn't put in the comments. They don't want anybody to know.
mhm, right, because it's got a stigma, and then you're the person. You're the friend who's the pee drinker. You have to be okay with that. But I mean, quite honestly, everybody on this call is the black sheep of their family.
Yeah.
We're the weirdos that care about the food that we eat and the movement of our body, and that's just it's not readily accepted by society.
So this is a really good point because I'm not going to argue about the benefits of urine therapy. I do it myself. I've seen it literally cure disease. I've seen world-class doctors that are doing it and also prescribing it. So I don't even want to argue about that. But what about the social aspect of it? Because you push the edges. Even like right to butthole suntanning. You've pushed the edges. How does that feel? Like, when you're pushing an edge, do you feel like nervous sometimes? Do you feel like you push too far, or do you just do it and whatever?
So the way that you're saying it is how it looks, right? Like I'm pushing the edges. But it's really not that. I'm just walking in the direction that my life's leading me, and it just so happens to be at the edge of society. But a lot of people I've heard, like when you're looking at comments and stuff, or people giving me feedback, it seems that I'm doing things on purpose, right? To make a spectacle of everything. And like the butthole sunning thing, like that. Here's the thing with social media. You do need to pay attention to the algorithms.
Yeah.
So that video was short, it was to the point, it had all the components, but we literally shot it in 5 minutes. So it almost like we accidentally stumbled in and made this like beautiful, where all the components worked for virality. And Johnny Knoxville shared it, and all these celebrities shared it, like all the news companies shared it all over the world. I was getting contacted by news like all over the world. I didn't go on any of them because it wasn't a spectacle for me. Like it was literally what I was doing every single day for the last 2 or 3 years, was going outside naked. The butthole thing, yeah, that was said for the algorithm, but it was more about just get sun on your entire body, including your perineum, which is a very important gate in Taoism and all the countries in the East, and probably ancient Americas as well. So the perineum's the root, right? So in yoga as well. And then we've got even like the front parts of the sex organs that accepts sunlight. There's lots of melanin there. But it was literally just what I do every single day. It's not so much that I'm doing it on purpose to try and shock and awe people.
Yeah, fair statement. And that's what we do. We share what we do. And where it pushes the edges, I think exactly what you're saying. It's like we do this because it works. We know it works. We have tens of thousands or for hundreds of thousands of people doing something before we actually even post it. So when we post something, we know it's already working, and we're doing what we're doing is sharing our journey, and that's what you're doing, is just sharing what you're learning and what your journey is, right?
Yeah. What are you feeling when you're touching yourself there?
Oh,
That felt good.
I tell you what's been going on is I've been getting super beefy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we went to Costa Rica, and all I was doing was we had to walk up these hills every day 3 or 4 times. And at the end of the week, I'm like, I feel like I've been in a gym for a month.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks that walking up a hill, and I'm like muscular. It's just weird. I haven't felt this muscular feeling in a long time. And so that's what it is. I can't get used to it because I'm like, whoa, everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, walking's the original exercise for us. That's actually one of the things that makes us human, is walking upright.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of the functions of the body get processed, through walking. I've heard you talk about digestion and the importance of walking, and calf stimulation helps digestion, and that's where those meridians go through, right? Like the kidney.
Yeah. It's actually so the reason why we walk after a maneuver or after treatment, like at the Human Garage, is because it's 3 minutes after you have a significant change in the mechanics of the body, which is actually fascial mechanics, which the musculoskeletal nervous system responds to. Like, muscles don't move the body, fascia moves the body. That's clear as day to us right now. But when you have a significant change, it takes 3 minutes to adapt. And you can see this when an athlete gets hit, and they're like, they walk it off. Watch the timing. Just put your watch on, and by 3 minutes, they're walking normal. Like, they can barely walk. And there's also, if you fall down and hurt yourself, the first instinct is to jump up. Because what it happens is the body with the brain is coordinating with the brain saying, am I okay? And then 3 minutes, walking is contralateral motion. So it's both hemispheres of the body, right and left hemisphere, working simultaneously and rotating. So it's the most complex activity for the body to do. Like, if I'm riding a bike and I'm riding fast, I'm not wobbling. But if I slow right down, I have to really balance, and it's wobbling, right? So walking is, and the slower you walk, I don't know if you ever tried it, but if you try to like just walk biomechanically correct, slow like this, and do it timed, so you're doing it right, virtually nobody can do that. So your hand and your foot come to the peak at the same time.
Yeah, contralateral, yeah.
Yeah, so contralateral motion is the toughest thing in rotation for the brain to resolve. And so walking is the correction. And now you don't get it when you're running. That's why if you do 30 minutes, people, if you really want to change the physiology and the neurology of your body, walk up hills. And look at all the blue zone countries. The one thing they have in common with the best ones is they all have hills, like Japan, Costa Rica. They all have these hilly areas that people walk up and down, because you're doing contralateral motion, and then you're walking up a hill, which forces pressure to repressurize in the body.
Yeah, I mean, even just the difference between walking uphill and downhill, and how your body needs to balance in that plane as well. It has to compensate whether you're walking uphill or downhill, which is another dynamic task the body.
You want to try something? So here's
Yeah.
how pressure mechanics work. So this is what we do for Olympic runners, okay? So if you're standing like this, your feet there, now what you're not going to do is you're not going to try to affect your balance. You might even want to close your eyes, right? Then take your right hand, and what you're going to do is you're going to cramp it like this. Not crush it, but cramp it so you pull it tight. And then put it down to the side of your body, and then see if you lean to one side or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I actually feel my whole chain on my right side is activated just from my hand.
Right, now, okay. So
It
now, if you take
feels like a pull.
try to walk and see, you immediately pull to that side.
Oh, I need to walk without thinking.
Yeah, walk without thinking, without trying to balance.
Yeah, it does do it
Okay,
immediately.
so here's a practical application in sports. You're an Olympic runner. You're running an oval. You're running around a corner like this. You lose force because your body is over. It has to bend. But if you go like this, you fold over, and now you're running like this. That's a 3 to 5% difference on a 400 meter. That means a medal versus a non-medal.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
here's
I
another one.
turn left, but I just want everybody to know that there's a chair right here. So my mind was like, all right, I'm gonna walk this way, and then that's why I was like, oh, I need to do this without thinking, because I was like,
So try this. Try just your baby fingers. Just do
wait,
the
what are
baby
you doing with your baby
like
fingers?
this,
Yeah.
right? So just grab them, cramp them like this, and walk forward. And what happens is your chest goes out.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so if you're walking down a hill, okay, down a hill like this, and you do this, guess what happens? You go like this, and guess what happens to all the pressure on your knees? Your pressure on your knees comes off right away.
Right. Because you're going into your posterior chain to support
Yeah.
the movement.
And you know how I discovered that? I was watching the hand movements of runners who were like Ben Greenfield, who were doing or who were doing what do you call it in the bushes and all that. Can't remember. So I was watching.
So,
Okay, let me go to somewhere else. I'm gonna go way over here, see if it's better. So
are your comments working, Gary?
it shut off, but there's something weird going on. I don't know what it is.
You can't see anyone's comments.
Okay, can you see it now?
I can see yours, yeah, and I can hear you fine.
Okay, so I'm in a new area.
So we were on something.
Yeah,
Something.
Olympic.
Ben Greenfield.
Yeah, the runners. What I noticed when I would zoom in on slow motion is that their fingers would naturally go like this as they're running, but they weren't aware of it, because I asked a couple of them if they were aware of it as I was training them, right? And I noticed that Olympic runners, the best ones, would naturally do that in the corner without even thinking about it. They would close one hand. And then you also see this if you see somebody who has like an old timer who has an injury like this. You see like an old person has an injury, they'll pull their hand, it'll cramp to that side. So that naturally. So these are called pressure mechanics. And here's another one. So if you stand like this, and then you turn your palms like this and squeeze your scapula back and feel where your weight goes.
I mean, it's back in my heels.
Right. So walk around with it like this, and then let it go and feel where the weight goes.
Like
It goes on your
falling forward.
Yeah, it goes on your shins and on your feet.
Yeah.
So if I roll my shoulders forward, the weight goes right onto the balls of my foot. So you look at bunions. Look at all the women who have bunions. Look what their shoulders are. They're like this. They're like that. So what happens is it projects and it puts the weight on this is the heel on the front of the foot, and then that's what causes the bunion because of the over usage or the pressing of the bone into the fascia at the nub of the toe, and then water comes in to heal it. So one of the things for bunions is the first thing is to do is pull the shoulders back mechanically and get it back. Well, this is why, because there's only 5 bones. I heard Gary Brecka say this the other day. There's only 1 bone in the body that doesn't touch, and I'm like, that's actually not true. There's actually 5. The scapula isn't connected to anything, and neither is the patella. So the reason
Isn't
why
there a bone up here too?
hyoid,
The hyoid.
hyoid, yeah. So the ratio of the scapula to the patella is front back. This is right left. So these bones tell the fascia where we are in space and time. That's how the fascia knows to move. Another thing you can do is you could pinch your rib cage on one side and your body pulls to that side. So if you have a fascial adhesion, or if you have a scar over here, a surgery, which is a pinch, your body pulls that side, and then naturally you have to pull this way, and that's what starts to cause the mechanical issues in the body. This is our bread and butter at Human Garage like 15 years ago. We were working with scars and mechanics on that, but we didn't really quite understand fascia then. We thought we did. But now we understand that it's all pressure in the body.
So what about scar tissue?
Well, scars, okay, so if I take my shirt and I cut it, right? And then I sew it back up, it's not going to sit the same. It's all wrinkled. Well, that wrinkle here is pulling me one way. That's pulling me this way, so I have to pull this way against it in order to function and walk. So here's you want to walk straighter? Here I'll show you one really easy. Take your xiphoid bone right here. Take your hand like a little prong, and you're gonna push it in here and turn it counterclockwise. And hold it. Take your other one right on your CT joint and turn it clockwise and hold it. So turn it.
Yeah, I'm just getting the counterclockwise. That's counterclockwise. And this one clockwise?
Yeah, if you're watching us, we might be mirrored, so I'm turning it counterclockwise. And then breathe. Okay, now take your right hand, put it on your chest plate, and you're going to turn your thumb from your right side over to your left side. So you're going to turn it that way, and take your left hand and counter turn it right on your lower back, right where your thoracic and your spine move. And then breathe, pull in your spine, pull up your sex organs, and breathe. Okay, cool. Now, last thing is the bridge of the nose here. You're going to turn it, and you're going to turn it clockwise. And right behind, when you turn it, you'll feel some tension in the back of the head. Counter turn it, and breathe. Look up, look down, and do that, and you'll feel the tightening in your mid to lower back when you do that. Okay, now try to walk in a straight line and see what happens. It's like so much easier to walk, isn't it?
Yeah. So what I noticed by doing the maneuvers and even right now is that my feet start operating better. I can feel like all of the
right. So imagine you're
metatarsals.
Imagine you're a big balloon, right? If this part of the balloon gets all torqued up, my feet have to go like this. But if we're thinking that the bones are structured, that doesn't make sense. But what you did is took the tension off of your center bones. So the center bone there, like you have three tailbones effectively. Tailbone, tailbone, and tailbone, because there's three areas of the body, 1, 2, and 3. Each one has a centering bone, right? And each one of those centering bones, I'm watching the ants get me. So each one of those centering bones tells the body the fascia, which way to pull or torque. That's how we get people to move faster. Like the torque therapy, which is the most powerful therapy I know for sports mechanics. We haven't even released it yet, but this one that we started with in 2018. And what we do is we torque the body in areas around different joints and bones, and it increases performance automatically. Because it just like you could walk better by just doing that. Imagine doing that to every joint in your body in like 10 minutes. Then you perform with less restriction.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. Instead of just like moving like a massage, which is linear, it's like bring like that motion, that unscrewing motion seems to go deeper into all of the layers.
Well, because the body, when you think about it, when we move, right, we move in rotation. The body is all about rotation. That's why the fascial maneuvers are twist here, twist there, twist that, because the body moves through rotation. It doesn't move in a linear fashion. That's why walking on a flat surface causes a malfunction in our hips and then our shoulders and our neck and our jaw. So we're meant to move in undulating surfaces, because when I step up on something, it's not like a bench. That's why all these people doing all these, performance exercises, jump like this. Not how the body works. The body wants to go like this. It does not want to go straight. And if you go straight and you put lateral movement on a joint that's meant to go like this, you are going to cause a restriction, and that's where all of our injuries come from.
Yeah. I mean, the world's doing bicep curls and tricep extensions when these are meant to rotate.
Correct. Yes. And here's another one. If you just take your hand open and go like this and get your range of motion, right? Then you close the fist. Now do it. You lose your range of motion. So you shouldn't be grabbing a barbell, because if you grab a barbell, now if I grab a bag of rice, that doesn't happen. If I grab even a kettlebell like this, that doesn't happen. But if I grab a barbell and hold it, I'm restricting my range of motion. And when I do that, I'm training and building muscle function in a restricted range of motion, which eventually makes me tighter and eventually leads to constriction, restriction. And then I just get older because I stop moving. That's what getting old is about. It's not moving well.
Yeah, you're basically taking your hands and shortening all the muscles as much as possible, and then trying to move upstream the tissue that's connected to this. So it's all being pulled up into, well, I guess it's being pulled here if you're closing your hands, and it's pulling everything towards that.
Well, it's a little bit, it's even a little bit
yeah, I'm
wilder
using
than that.
Old verbiage, right?
So like if you got 1, 2, 3 joints, you got 1, 2, 3 joints, 1, 2, 3 joints of fascia. That's where the fascia meets, right? So if you affect this joint here, so do a squat. The squat, okay? Now take your finger and right at the base and just turn that one joint. Okay, now do a squat. You feel more restriction in your hips and your glutes. Let it go. Now opens up the glutes. So just affecting the pressure in this joint affects the pressure in here and in here right away. That's what we discovered. This is how we got Olympic runners to run faster. This is how we got professional athletes to perform better. Is that we didn't know what it was, but we could see that by affecting the pressure mechanics in the body, we were affecting the body's ability to perform. Because if I have pressure on a body, it actually takes away the ability. So like what we use is compression socks. Mm-hmm. And people go, oh, that makes me feel so much better. And I'm like, yeah, for a moment. But that's pushing pressure into another area, which is eventually going to come back down and affect all of your range of motion. And so there's all these beliefs that we have around it. But it's also like, why does compression, like why does a knee brace, where you put neoprene around here, why does that support my joint? It's because there's more points of contact in the fascia. The fascia, which is the structure, feels more stable. Because technically, a little bit of neoprene isn't going to support the bone and the muscle and all the weight. There's no way. So how does it do it? It's affecting the pressure distribution in that area. I mean, we have people that use it, and they know how to use it, but they don't know why it works.
I always wondered that. Like you get an elbow brace, and it's just like a piece of neoprene, and it's like, how is this? Because the way I was thinking about it was like bone, tendon. How is this supporting my bones and tendons?
It doesn't.
Right.
That's my point. I looked at it and said, there's no way that could support the bone. Well, here's another one though. And so why does water Why does water all of a sudden make us looser? It's because there's constant pressure all over the body.
You mean being
Yeah,
in water?
being in water. Yeah, yeah, it puts pressure all over the body, so the body feels safe. So that's why we use in fascial maneuvers. That's why we use 3 points of contact. So if you like, just take your one foot, put it on top of just touching your other foot. Take your one hand, touch your chest. Take the other hand and touch your head. Everything relaxes. Take your hand off your head. Take your hand off your chest. Tightens up. Put it on your chest. Put it on your head again. It relaxes. So the body, the whole fascial maneuvers process is based upon 3 points of contact. Well, one of the points of contact is atmospheric pressure. There's 14.7 pounds of pressure per square inch on your body. Aggregate on your body, raw, is 2,000 pounds of pressure average. You know, a smaller person, a little bit less, bigger person, a little bit more, but 2,000 pounds average. That means that inside your body, you have equal and opposing 2,000 pounds of pressure. That's a lot. And if fascia, it has the breaking point of steel, tensile steel. So that means that tensile steel breaks at 50,000 pounds. So in order to tear fascia and tear a muscle, you actually have to exert 50,000 pounds of pressure. And the question is, how does that happen? Now, have you heard, you've been in a gym, have you heard somebody tear a pec or a quad? It sounds like somebody takes a 2x4 and goes,
yeah, it's
bang!
like snap.
Sounds like a gun goes off.
Right.
Yeah,
I've heard
how
it.
much noise would you have to make? How much pressure would you have to make that noise? Even if you hit somebody, it wouldn't make that much noise. It literally sounds like somebody takes a 2x4 and hits a wall.
Yeah, you can hear it in the entire facility. Like everybody in the whole gym will hear.
Yeah, it's louder than dropping a weight. So you think about that. What kind of decibel, what kind of pressure would it take to create that kind of noise? That's 50,000 pounds of aggregate pressure.
And it's a popping sound too.
Yeah.
It's like
that's what it is.
pressure built up.
Doesn't tear. It goes
like a
bang.
pop.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happens is that the only way to tear, and think about it, you could gain weight, you can go up to 600, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,200 pounds and not break. So how is it that when you move a muscle, you tear it? It's because you have a contraction in a muscle from a range of motion that's restricted, and then you exert it against a contraction with pressure. Now, when you do that, when we're moving, so that means we're moving pressure around the body. This is the thing that this was the whole foundation of fascial maneuvers and the human garage therapy. It's pressure mechanics. We haven't even begun to tell the world that yet. I mean, we've leaked it out a little bit, but we've never actually put it out in an education format, but we're going to. Because the next thing we're going to release is practitioner version torque mechanics, which takes a person who can barely walk, just like you were walking straighter after turning your center bones. Imagine 3 people torquing the ball.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there. Can you hear me?
She was FaceTiming me, and I didn't have it on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
And it literally took over all the live. It I've had all kinds of weird stuff happening.
Yeah. So that happens to me sometimes. People call me on Instagram while I'm doing a live and Do Not Disturb doesn't work.
Yeah.
If anybody, well, I guess.
Yeah, they can hear us now.
All right. So 2 things came up. Number one, I'll stay on the theme that you're on with the pressure mechanics. Is there something stronger than contraction that could help you? So like, let's just say if we're doing movement the traditional way is that we're taking a muscle and we're contracting it. And so it's about squeezing everything as tight as possible and then doing the movement, right? That's what we're doing when we're squatting. We're trying to lock everything in and then go through the squat. So is there any benefit to being more loose? Because even if I think about
Yes,
like
yeah. So power
qigong
comes through
and tai
range of motion.
chi,
So what takes away power is restriction. So if I restrict this, I have to lift. I have to fight against a restriction at the core, at the root. So if I remove the restriction, I can move through that range of motion easier. And the other part too is, if you think about the most transformative and powerful movement of a human being, when we want to adapt to a new environment, which is even sports. If you think of downhill skiing, what do we do? It's all counter rotation. That's what my observation was, that counter rotation adapts the body from being here to here, to being a whip, a spring, because it rolls that spring up and then flies it. Think about the guys who wear the blades, who run, the runners who run on the blades. You know, they have the paraplegics.
boing, boing.
That blade doesn't look like it should work, right?
No.
No, because what happens is the spine is a curve, right? So it's expanding the curve. We don't have straight motion. We have curvature, and reaction is power. So you have more power by going like this. That's why when they throw a hammer throw, they go wham like that. Those big Scandinavian dudes, they don't just go like this. They turn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're going up on an angle. You know what's funny regarding that is that I used to compete in CrossFit, for those of you that don't know, and I was very, very good at it. I was top few hundred in the entire world for 6 or 7 years, which out of millions of people, that's performing really well. I was smaller than everybody. I have very small wrists. Everybody I was competing against was perceivably twice as strong as me. And I had these weird strategies because I have injuries all over my body. So I had to come up with like strategies of how can I perform more power output without actually being stronger. And one of the things that I would constantly think about while I was competing was to relax as much as possible. So if I'm lifting a barbell overhead, I'm trying to use I was trying to figure out where I can turn off my muscles as much as possible, as opposed to staying contracted the entire time. So for me, the whole game was, where can I turn off my muscles? Maybe that's the wrong word, but how can I relax?
You're using the right word. It's because muscles, you actually use the exact right word, which people don't relate to, because they think that muscles are driving the function or action of the body. But part of the science that we worked on was that muscles don't actually move the body. Muscles stabilize the movement of a body, because if you put electrolysis on a muscle on your bicep, it goes boom. You let it go, it goes boom. It doesn't have any gradients. It can't go different direction. It just goes, it contracts and locks up against the bone. So that means that if the muscle signaling when it gets the electricity, it just goes boom. So like if you're walking, your fascia is what's sensing the world, and your perception is what's telling you. So if you're walking and you miss a curb, right? So you just slightly miss a curb, then you go poof, and you get everything tightens up on that one side. Because remember, bones are piezoelectric. So when they touch, they create a spark. So if your perception isn't right and you miss a step, all your bones in your feet touch, then your ankles, then your tib fib, then your femur, and then your knee, your femur, and poof. And then all of a sudden that whole side of the body is locked up, just like it was stimulated like electricity. So fascia is what makes movement, and that stabilizes. If I want to do that movement better, I can stabilize, put an arm there. That's what the muscle does. It stabilizes the movement. Muscles don't drive it. And this is why a gymnast, like, this goes back to a time when I was when I was young. I was like 16 years old, and I was trying to get to a 300-pound bench. and I couldn't get it, right? And I was like, kept pushing, and finally I got over 300 pounds at 17 years old. And then I had a buddy.
Finally, at 17 years old.
Yeah, because
People are working out
I've
their
been working
entire
out
life.
since grade 9. And but remember, I competed. Those pictures you saw of me was 18 years old. I was 19 years old, just turned 19 at the Nationals. Just turned 19. So what happened was I got over 300 pounds finally. And then my friend who's a gymnast never lifted a weight in his life. He came, sat down, and he went, and I'm like, what the hell? How is that possible? And it's because he had range of motion and strength and core strength. And this is what you had as a CrossFit athlete. You had range of motion and core strength. That's why you were winning, and everybody else is working out. You weren't even working out.
Right. The other thing that came up that I wanted to ask you about is, first of all, I've never torqued these parts of my hand, and it feels really good. But is there any coordination or relevance between like the inner? So this is like the proximal side of the hand, right? It's like well, it's close to the inside, and this is like close to the outside. Does this go somewhere to like maybe the inside or the outside of the leg?
Yeah. As a matter of fact,
is there a difference between
these
this?
coordinate to these exactly. And when we do our finger release, we turn away on this finger and on this finger.
Oh yeah, I've done those.
And then we do inward on the others, because when we're running, in order to maximize motion, you can't have them all go this way. You have to have two counterbalance. So the inner toe turns inward, the toes are exactly opposite of the hands. So the hand you turn inward, and then you turn finger outward on the thumb, inward, outward, inward.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, and the toes are exactly the opposite, because when we're moving, it requires that balance, because we have two bones that come up here that are connecting. And those two bones require a counter torque in order to perform.
So what if you don't have that memorized? Is it okay
for the average person,
way?
unless you're an Olympic athlete, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the amount of difference, 90 to 95% of it is just to torque it one direction and pull, because you're just loosening it. Now, if you're using it for performance, if I'm getting you to perform and you're at your peak of performance and I twist another direction, you'll notice the increase or decrease. But the average person ain't going to notice it.
Yeah, they're performing at the very, very edge. Yeah.
And these philosophies were built with working like runners like Tyson Gay, fastest man in the world, and Lashinda Demas, silver medal hurler. These were like people that we were learning from, because what we were doing is looking at what injuries did they have, why did those injuries happen. Here's one.
My air squat feels healthier than ever. So
you want your squat to get healthier? Let's relieve pressure off your knee. So take your right off here, and right across the bone, pull the skin back.
Does it matter which side?
Just do the right one first. So left hand here, push the skin back on the bone, and breathe. Okay. Now do your air squat.
Oh.
You feel that difference on your right leg?
I'm feeling a bunch of movement. Like there's cracks in my hip. My toes even cracked.
Walk and feel your right leg versus your left leg. The right leg feels light. The left leg feels heavy. Stuck.
That was crazy. My right hip cracked. My toes cracked. On my right side.
So let's do the other side, because I can't be unbalanced.
So good.
Oh, man, I haven't done that in a couple weeks, and that feels really good.
Oh.
So, can you imagine, like, we have all this knowledge about the body that right now we're just like, you're in pain, do this, do that. We have how to fire hormones, how to move the body, how to increase function in a specific joint or range of motion. We have all these different things that right now we don't have the bandwidth to show everybody. But here's one. So feel your ankles, okay, and then walk around and feel your toes. Okay, so 3 fingers on your jaw, the right one facing backwards and the left one facing forward. Torque. And then breathe. Look up and breathe. Move around. Open and close your jaw. Okay, now this is wild. Now walk and feel your toes again. Squat and feel your ankles. So let me tell you the thought behind that one. This bone here is an L shape. So it's signifying another L-shaped bone. If you look at your hip bone from the side, it's actually an L shape. And your ankle bone, L shape. So when you move the fascia around those bones are similar. And if you take the pressure off of similar bones, then the action of that area of the body changes.
I I don't know the anatomy as well as you, but isn't there like a certain amount of either muscles or attachments in the jaw? There's like the same number of something in the jaw compared to the hips.
It is. It's a replication of the hip, and so the other part too is your palate is a diaphragm going down like this, but your pelvic floor is an opposite diaphragm. That's why the palate swipe works, because as you counter rotate your head, your hips are exact rotational difference. So if you have tightness in your palate on one side, it'll affect the rotation of your hips and vice versa. So take a walk now. Feel your swing. As we're doing it. And then what we'll do is a palate swipe. So just take the thumb, put it on the top right-hand side, go right to left. Oh man, I needed to do that today. Then walk. Now your hips are swaying more.
Yeah. I didn't even notice the movement before. I don't even think I was moving at all in there.
It was restricted. Yeah, because what we think strength comes through tightness, but strength comes through flexibility and range of motion. Again, this is why you were like not the biggest guy, but you're winning CrossFit athlete. You're in the top, you're in the hundreds out of millions, right. But you're not the strongest guy. But from a standpoint of lifting weights, but you're definitely have all the mobility, which is really the strength of life. I don't give a shit how much you can bench. It doesn't mean anything in life. You can bench all you want, but I go to these guys who can lift all this weight and they can't do anti-gravity. They can't put their hands behind. That's where I used to be. I mean, how is that gonna benefit you? Bruce Lee proved this. I mean, Bruce Lee was just a skinny little guy who killed everybody.
Yeah. Killed everybody. Yeah. And he was super knowledgeable about the body, and I do remember that he had a concept which was relax until it's needed, and at that point you put the force.
Yeah, the 1-inch punch from him. But what he was doing at that side is he was exerting energy or force. Like I can push force around. So I can knock people off balance when they're in my presence. if they're not aware of it, I do it as fun over here. I just like, people go like that, they don't even know what happens. It's so I've been practicing doing that, because at the end of it, what moves us, we used to think that the brain moved the muscles to the hormonal nerve connection, but again, it takes a second and a half for a nerve signal to go from the foot up through the brain, through the homunculus and cerebellum. Homunculus is how far, how hard. Cerebellum is motion, elegant motion, down to the foot for motor control. So my question, what happened in the clinic is we were doing nerve conduction testing on somebody. So we had a machine in there. So we could test the nerve, see where it went with the EEG to the brain and the back. And it took a whole second and a half to make that loop to connection to read it. And I said, well, how do we move when we step on glass? And they said, well,
The Golgi
Garry, that's
tendon.
silly. It's a ganglion reflex. And I said, no, that's silly, because that means if I step on glass, I can go boing. But I don't. I move intelligently to safety, but I'm moving to safety before the brain is even aware that there's a threat. I move to safety the second it happens. Like if I step on glass, I move within milliseconds. The brain doesn't even know there's a threat. So I'm like, listen, I'll agree. I'll let you say you don't know. I used to say this to my practitioners. I'll let you say you're not smart enough. You don't know. You don't want to know. You can't figure it out. All those things are okay, but you can't tell me that's just the way it is anymore. You can't just leave a gaping hole like that where the brain doesn't even know that there's a threat and the whole body's moving to safety. And then take a step further with perception, right? So if I told you that Carolina died right now, and you believe me, your whole body goes into shock. You feel it viscerally. Like I could feel your heart drop as soon as I said it. And then I tell you 5 minutes later, oh, it's a different Carolina. You start to come out of shock. Oh, thank God. But every system in your body is compromised. Your nervous system, your neurology, your function, your digestion, your hormones, your glandular system, your lymphatic system. Everything is in a state of shock. But it was based upon a perception, not even a reality. And then when I take away the perception, it comes out of shock. So in other words, perception is the highest state of function or dysfunction in the human body. So why is it when we go to a doctor, he's not saying, what's your perception about this event? Like a woman who's trying to cure herself or fix herself, she's got kids and she's afraid her husband's going to is cheating on her, is going to leave her. Her digestion's never going to work right. Her hormones are going to be unbalanced. She's not going to sleep right. Or a guy, same thing. He thinks his partner his wife is going to leave him, and he's fearful. You know, because then he's like, all that stuff that overrides, that perception overrides every function in the body, but we don't talk about it at all. Everybody's trying to fix the body, even all these things to fix the body. Even somebody was talking about gene keys the other day, and I'm like, yeah, that's from the body down. But if I step outside into, how do we move? Well, we have this ball of energy. It's called an entropic field, which we can shoot and measure. That's moving around, and the body's responding to its requests. Like, how do we know we're thirsty? The body don't tell us. The field tells us you're thirsty. Oh. And then I get a thought, and that thought has a narrative.
And if that's where some mystical stuff comes in, because if we ignore those thoughts, then there needs to be a stronger signal. And that's where things like a car accident or slip and fall, like if you're getting signals to, let's say, slow down or change directions in life, and you just keep on staring at your phone and scrolling the feed or working hard, and you're just continuously going in basically not the direction that the field's directing you in, then there's going to need to be a stronger solution for that. And that's where an injury, something happens traumatic, and then it's forcing you to change directions.
Yeah, so that's what I noticed as a practitioner. Okay, so this is the reason why I no longer in 2018 wanted to be a practitioner. At 2018, I had 7 years of watching large numbers of people come through, and I would see that when everything else failed in the world, they came to Human Garage. We fix them. They go out 2 years later, they come back, and what they had was twice as bad as when they came in before, or somewhere else. And then you fix it again, they come back 2 years later, like 2 years, almost to the day, and then something else happens. And after seeing this, now going on to my fourth cycle, you see it with 1 or 10 or 50 or 100 people. When you see this over thousands of people, you're like, holy shit, what's the common denominator? It was me. I was fixing them, taking away the lessons that their body or their life was trying to show them. And then they were just going back out, and boom, they would get it worse. So I realized that people's pain was increasing because I was fixing the pain that they didn't recognize.
There you go. And they literally couldn't even feel it, right?
Didn't even know it was happening because they were
Well,
still trying to fix something in their body without asking, why is that something there?
yes. I want to go back to the perception versus basically the body responding through hormones or nervous energy. Because if we find out some information and then, like, let's say a conversation with somebody, we find out that, like, oh, maybe they didn't say this thing that I thought they said, but we were so agitated from that. When we find out the truth, it doesn't necessarily relieve everything in the body, right? You're still kind of like,
Absolutely, it does the opposite, because I have a relief in the perception, but then the body doesn't have a closing, because I never thought my way out of that. I never talked to myself and said, hey, maybe I need to think differently. Maybe I have a perception. I'll be open to the experience, which is the learning cycle. So it just like cuts it off, and then I get to do it all over again.
right. And so, but that's definitely true. The point I was getting at was like, so I noticed, like, if I have to go speak on stage, right? My body's reacting, nervous energy, right? Imposter syndrome, all that stuff's like, I actually, like, my heart's beating faster. Sometimes I get the chills. And then I have to work my way through that, right? I'm doing it with my thoughts. But the thing that I noticed that fixes it the best is to open up my heart center by basically breathing in as deep as I can, holding the breath for a second or two, breathing in deeper, hold my breath for a second or two, breathing in deeper. And then I do a navel pump for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then I release it all. And it's just like opens up the heart. And that was the thing that I learned to overcome that energy that gets into me and either makes me feel nervous or anxious about
Let's
something.
do it right now.
So I learned this from, it's called the Master Key System. There's this book series
Okay, let's
written in
do
the.
it. Take us through it.
All right, so this especially works if you're nervous, if you're getting like stage fright or something. So it's very simple. So you're just trying to fill up the heart. So just take a normal breath in, normal breath out. Breathe in as deep as you can. Hold that breath for just about 2 seconds. Breathe in a little deeper. Hold deeper. Hold. Now do stomach pumps by still holding your breath. Pump your stomach up, 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 up. Okay, that's created more space. Get in a little bit more air. Hold, and then just release.
Oh, man.
So I do that 2 or 3 times, and all of that and then I can focus on on the people.
That feels good.
Yeah. And I don't really get agitated like in the environment very often, but next time I do, like if something cues me, as you say, or how other people say it triggers me, if that happens, I'm going to see if that gets the response out of my body. But I know that for stage fright,
Yeah,
it
that
works.
actually would work. So here's the question: is that since we had that conversation of trigger versus cue, have you have that made it? Have you tried that? Have you
No, it
thought of it a different?
works. It works definitely because nothing's about anybody else, right? It's all happening inside of us. Like everything's inside of us. Yeah.
So
So
that's a big thing. There's a couple things that I do right now when I feel like I'm triggered, I go right away. That's not a trigger, it's a clue. Okay, what's the clue? I start looking around energetically, physically. And the other one, since everything works out anyways, when something's really intense, I go, holy crap, I wonder how this is going to work itself out. And, and
Yeah.
and that, what that does is it takes it out of me and puts it right in the field. And I'm no longer responsible. I'm now observing, oh wow, this is going to be crazy. I wonder how this is going to work.
That was like when you and I were texting a couple weeks ago, and you guys were flying to Costa Rica, and I committed to taking over the live, and then I was in bed with headaches and body pains and nasal stuffed up, and I could barely talk. And I was texting you the night before, and you're like, "I'm excited to see how this goes," and I was like, "I haven't spoken a word in 4 days." And I responded like, I'm excited to see how this goes as well, because it was like, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this, but it's going to be a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, and you know, I look back at the most entertaining, fun, and transformative times in my life, and it's when I thought something wasn't going to happen, and it worked out. Like I remember once we're driving on the highway, and we got this new navigation system. It was like satellite navigation, or not navigation. It was, yeah, satellite navigation, and we were like busy playing with it. It was back in the 90s, right? We're busy playing, or late 90s. We're busy playing with it, and we're like, and we realized all of a sudden it goes ding, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and there's no gas stations. Because we were so busy playing with it, we missed the fact that we needed to get gas, and it was like one of those moments where, well, I guess we just keep going. We kept going.
Yeah.
We literally ran out of gas, and we rolled right up to the gas.
That's amazing. I've done that a few times.
Yeah, and it was like, and those were one of those moments we were laughing and howling, because, you know, the fear kicks in. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. It's late at night. No one can help us. I mean, it was one of those things, right? But that was one of those transformative times in my life where I learned to just trust that the universe has got me.
Mm-hmm. And that's a skill to do. It's like sitting in your faith, because you've gotten through everything that you've ever faced in your entire life. We all have. And it's brought us to this moment. So when we have a new challenge, we get to remind ourselves, we've gotten through everything else. We're going to get through this as well.
So how do you deal with that? Like when you're in a situation and you're in pain, and you're holding out for something, a belief, what do you tell yourself?
So first of all, there's an equation that I remind myself, which is suffering equals pain times resistance. So pain times resistance equals suffering.
Right.
So
Okay.
the pain's going to be there. If I resist it, I multiply the pain, and that equals more suffering. But pain times zero resistance equals zero suffering. So I can deal with the pain or the anxiety of like the unknown, but I'm not going to suffer if I accept it. If I
Okay. I have a very visceral scientific analogy to that. If you have a level 3 pain in your body, and your body fires adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol, stress hormones, that 3 becomes a 6 or 8 instantaneously. That's resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
Interesting. So just like the body.
Yeah. And then it's all for me, it feels like mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
Like it's like a thought comes up, and it's like, that's not going to serve anything if I worry about running out of gas. Like, to build that up, it's like, we've got as much gas in the gas tank as we have now. The closest gas station is this way. Like, focus on that and just see what happens. Like, the see what happens thing is an amazing place to sit in, because that's the experience of life. That's being present. If we're worrying about the future, or anxious or angry about the past, then we're not present. And so when these challenges happen, it's like this is a time for me to use my skill set. It's a
Right.
time for me to build, to challenge myself. And the thing is, everybody thinks that if they go to a self-development seminar or they meditate for 3 years, that means that their life gets less challenging. And it's the opposite. It gets more challenging because we're more capable, we can handle more, and number one, we're going to find ourselves in situations where we're at our capacity because that's what we do. We go into zones where we are capable, so we're going to have more challenging abilities. But then also, life's boring if we're not here just to sit on a beach and relax
Yeah.
forever. We're gonna literally that's like being in jail. In jail, you take away everything. Yeah, you're in social confinement, you're in solitude, but on top of that, you have nothing to drive towards. Like there's your sense of will and establishment and effect. Like, do you have self-efficacy? Are you able to accomplish things? All of that is taken away from you when you're in jail, and it's the same thing when you're on just like vacation mode forever.
Yeah.
That's why
I relate to that.
millionaires, billionaires, celebrities, these people's lives, some of them, not all of them, there's some that wake up, but some of these people's lives are absolute mess. Like the children of billionaires, drug
They're my
addicts,
clients.
partying.
They're my clients, man. I worked with, I won't say the names, but I've worked with some of the biggest billionaire families in the world, and their children, they're incredibly messed up.
Right.
I haven't seen one normal one. That's the thing.
Yeah, because they don't have the challenges that we have. These challenges keep us human, they keep us sane, they keep us on track.
So somebody says, I need a new word for challenges. I get it. So it's not a challenge. It's a lesson. It's a learning. It's an adventure.
An
So
opportunity.
yeah, because I mean, if I'm angry, frustrated, it's a challenge. Like I've got to fix my car. My car breaks down. I got to fix it. But if I'm MacGyver, it's like, well, how do I get through this? How do I
Yeah.
make this work? And it's like, wow, I got a story to tell. So it depends on what my aspect is. If I was on a reality show and you're in a car and it breaks down, you have to figure out how to make it work, and the winner gets $1,000,000, you'd be talking about how good it was and all that. But if it's not a reality show and it breaks down and you got to fix it, you're like, oh, this is so horrible.
Right. I mean, that's a good analogy. There's a reality show, I haven't seen it, where like Grant Cardone has to make $1 million business in 90 days.
Yeah,
And he does
seen
it.
that. I seen that. He goes, yeah, well, here's what I
Undercover
did.
Millionaire is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
So, but the point is, if we lose our business or lose our job, that's essentially the situation that we're in, right? We have to build up as quick as possible. And so if somebody will watch, I don't know, they don't make TV shows for no reason, but there's got to be millions of people sitting on a couch watching this guy go through this challenge and this struggle, but they're unwilling to do it on their own, when like life will give you that whole show in your own life sometime during this lifetime. We just need to remember that it's a
Television
game.
seductive, man, because what it does is you get the emotion experience of the emotion without the physical, like if I get a perception without having something physical in the world that rebalances the perception, it creates an imbalance in my nervous system, my belief system, and my body. Now, I had this conversation with Mary today. I was saying, look at if you're in your head and you're having angry conversations with somebody, you're having that conversation. The words are just a confirmation of the conversation. So if you don't have that conversation with them, that creates a deficit in you and in them. You're hurting you and them. So you're better off to have the conversation or adjust that conversation, at least make it positive.
Here's something else that's crazy when you think about it. You've probably heard the concept that when you dream, everybody represents an aspect of yourself.
Yes.
And that your mind or whatever is responsible for the dream, whether it's like a etheric source, that it's not experiencing other people while you're dreaming. But it's the same thing when you're thinking. When you're going through like, I hate this person, you're really just those emotions you're saying to yourself. Your body's not experiencing you arguing and saying the best things possible to another person. Your mind has your subconscious has no concept of another person. It only has a concept of self. So you arguing, winning, beating another person in your mind is all those emotions are basically just being cycled into you. It's like you hating yourself. If you're hating somebody else in your mind, you're hating yourself because your subconscious doesn't have a concept of another person.
Hey, somebody here was spasming and spamming. You want to help him live?
Yeah, I can't see any of the comments, so I don't
Shit.
know who you're referring
Shit,
to.
I can't even bring him live. Okay, for Three Entrepreneur, I want you to go do the lower reset on our website. You should be out of that pelvic floor artery spasm. Do the lower reset on our website. I just saw it come up and I wanted to help him, but I tried to bring him live, but I guess they have a private account.
Garry, I think this was super amazing talk, and I think we should end it here on a high note.
Let's do it.
It was crazy, man. That was a really exciting talk for me. So
we had a good one today. So looking forward to that. And by the way, we're heading back to Vancouver for a couple of weeks and back down. But we were thinking about going to Asia, and I just want to throw it out to you. Possibly if you guys might want to join us for part of that. We're thinking about we're going to be doing a road show. Remember the like Joshua Tree, but imagine that with 20,000 people. We're thinking about doing that in Indonesia and in Philippines. So back to your home country.
Which I've never been, but I do know they pack stadiums in that side of the world like that.
Yeah, so just throwing that out there. Think about it. We're thinking about mid-January through to the end of February. We're thinking about staying there. So maybe think about coming out for a bit because we are going to be doing some of these big events, and I'd love to have you show up and headline that event again.
Yes, let's do it. I'm in. I'm in. Sorry about not sorry, but the Costa Rica thing just happened how it happened. And it was actually perfect for us.
It happened perfectly. It was exactly what you needed.
We were just talking about that, Caro and I, my wife, yesterday, I think, about how, like, if we would have went to Costa Rica, this wouldn't happen, and we wouldn't be in this situation, and we would just be getting back, like, yesterday or 2 days ago,
you would just
right?
be getting back, yeah.
Absolutely. So, like, all the stuff that we just accomplished would have happened differently.
It happened for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
buddy.
Garry.
See you next week.
Thanks
awesome conversation.
For everything.
Okay. Take care.